right, so now with clear water, I'm wetting my paper. So here I go. You could use a bigger brush. I could use this brush to do this part, but I already have the paint on here. So I'm just going to go with this. And I notice right away it's a little strong. So I just dumped some water into my puddle of paint. And you really do need a puddle for this. And even though this looks strong, by the time I put the white paint speckles on it, it's going to lighten quite a bit. And I'm tilting my paper even more than usual. And I'm going to put some paper toweling under here. This gets messy, that's why I warned you. Let me put a little more up here. And now I'll just kind of slurp up what's at the bottom. And now, watch out, because here comes the snow. All right, so getting paint. It's like heavy cream. Okay, and I'm tapping it. Holding it like this. And I'm not going to worry if I get blobs, especially at this stage. The paper's so wet, these snowflakes are just going to blur. And now I'm going to make a stronger mix of my green and alizarin for the mountain trees. These are not the foreground trees, they're the mountain trees. So this really looks black. But it doesn't have to be too black. Okay, so here comes more snow. So my paper is still really wet, so the snow is spreading, but that's okay. And I'm starting to see a little separation in the pigment right at the edges where it's drying. And I like that. I'm imagining that they are right about here. And I'm using that technique of using the letters UW and O. O for the head, U upside down U for the body. And then W for the legs. So if I'm doing this guy, I'm just going to do approximate at first. So here's my W. It's kind of a distorted W because he's got his legs bent. See that figure? See how simple that is? I didn't do a lot of detail at all. I'm just going to make some zigzags. This is a good way to make an evergreen. Actually, it's good to start with a vertical, because you know the trunk's under there somewhere. Then you can end where you want the tree to bottom out. And don't make it too dense. So this is just a mix of the green and the burnt sienna, but I didn't mix it into a homogeneous puddle, so there's variation in hue in here. And I'm going to, actually I'm going to put in another tree in the background. And even though alizarin and phthalo green are staining colors, because of the gouache that it's mixed with, it lifts really easily, which is interesting. Okay, so before I do this, I'm going to do some trees that are a little farther back. Now here I'm coming on one of my skiers, not skiers, sleighers, sleigh riders. So I'm painting around him. I'm using the colors we've already been using, as well as burnt sienna and quinacridone gold. And so you can really get a nice variety here. Now I'm using, besides with this flat brush, I can use it one way and get a thin line, and then another way I can, you know, press down and get a really thick line. So essentially this is just kind of made up. And like I said, the hues vary as I go along. And the base of the vegetation, whether it's woods or weeds or whatever, in a situation like this, you want to keep it flat and horizontal rather than bumpy. Now this is a smaller horizontal, rather flat brush that's stiff, and I can go in here and make just some scrappy little lines. And then I could also, if I felt like it, I could kind of scratch some texture in here too. So this is a sort of fun area of the painting where you could just mess around. And like I said, it lifts very easily, so I can go back in here, use a wet brush, and move the pigment around. So this tree is it's going to be a cluster of trees, and I'm going to end these trees. I'm going to have these end right about here, and they're going to be a little further away, and less. They're going to be cooler. They're not going to have burnt sienna in them. And so I'm going to use this now to paint around this figure. Now, you don't have to put figures in if you don't want to. Yeah, I like this cluster of trees over here. So I think I'll, I want to bring this, I don't want this to be symmetrical. So I think I'll bring this, this cluster of trees out farther. And here I'm using the more dilute, less warm color. Now, if I wanted to put more figures in here, I could just make them dark against the lighter background, and it wouldn't be a big deal. So these trees are behind the tree I'm painting now. And of course, this is still very wet, so I'm getting a blurry tree, but it's okay. I'm just doing a little lifting here to differentiate this slope from this blob over here. So it just lifts so easily. It's fun to work backwards and forwards. So maybe I'll suggest a slope here. So just with a synthetic brush, I'm just wetting and rubbing it a bit. So I want a kind of a suggestion of the silhouettes of tops of trees. And then on the upper side of this white area I'm creating, I want to suggest a slope that would have a harder, straighter edge. Okay, so now I'm going to do my people. So this guy, I'm going to keep him, he's going to be dark against light down here, and then light against dark up here. So I want to stick with neutral colors, and I can always add another hue. And I don't want to differentiate between the jackets and the pants. You want these figures to be all of a piece. So I'm suggesting the feet and just letting them disappear with a wet brush here. This is a wet brush, and it's going to form a bloom, but that's okay. I just want to get the gestures with these sleigh riders. I just put a little bit of warm color where his face peeks through, but I'm not going to get into detail. So I'm using hues that contrast with the background. So here we have a greenish background, so I'm giving this figure a pinkish jacket. I'm going to give him a warm jacket. It would be nice to have a couple bright colors for the discs. So, or maybe cerulean. Now I'm going to use a little Cad Scarlet just to really jazz things up here. This could be a mistake. Yeah, I think it needed a little zip. Okay, so I'm going to now use straight white to describe the ground plane. I want the slope that they're sledding on to stand out. But because they've been trekking on the surface, it can be a little, it doesn't have to be real smooth. So now these figures are really going to pop.
And what is that white gouache you're using?
Yes, it works better than the titanium white, but if you don't have the white gouache, use Chinese white or titanium white or zinc white. And I don't want to just paint the whole ground a solid white. I want to paint, really leave some of the surface color showing through. So this is fun to paint around these sleigh riders. So they were pretty subtle before. I want some of the darker color to show through. So if you make a mistake when you're painting the figures, you can always correct them when you do the wash. Okay, I'm going to quickly do the final step, which is more snow, and then that'll be it for today, and it'll be done, I think. I could always go in and fuss with it some more, but. Okay. More snow, our final snowfall. Ah, yes. This unifies the whole painting.